Good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight as your Cabinet Member for Climate, Ecology, Culture and Air Quality at Westminster City Council. And thank you so much for inviting me along to talk a bit about all the work we're doing in the Council in collaboration with our communities to try to meet our net zero goals. So I'll start by saying nothing energises me more as the Cabinet Member than being in a packed room full of our local community, all dedicated to fighting against the climate and ecological emergencies. So thank you all for being here today, and thanks to London Central Mosque for your leadership on this agenda. I'm a councillor now. I've been a councillor for 3 years, but before that, I was one of you. I was a Westminster resident who really cared about climate and nature and wanted the councillors to be doing a little bit more. Apologies to the officers who are in the room tonight. So I ran for election, and I'm delighted that now we are considered one of the top councils in the country. But there's so much more that we still need to do. So I'm going to lay out some of what we've been doing, but also what's going to come next. I often get asked about my Cabinet Member portfolio. You might have noticed it's got climate and nature in there, but also culture. And people often ask me, what's the link between those two things? And I always say that they are intrinsically intertwined, because it's our culture, our heritage and our history that's most at risk if we don't combat the climate and ecological emergencies. And it's our culture, our history and our community that brings people together to fight against these existential issues. And that's demonstrated really nicely tonight by everyone who's in this room. And nowhere is that climate and culture crossover more prevalent than in the city of Westminster. With the heart of the capital city at the heart of our country, we have some of the highest emissions in the whole UK, but we also have culturally significant institutions from all walks of life, from the Houses of Parliament to some of the biggest museums and theatres in the world, to large faith institutions like the London Central Mosque, who can act as a beacon for others in the community across the country to see what can be done when you really collaborate. In Westminster, we have dual net zero targets. The first is our 2030 net zero target for the council's own emissions. So all of our own buildings, our own vehicles, and everything that comes under our control. The second target, the one that really keeps me up at night, is our 2040 net zero city target. And the reason that's the one that keeps me up at night is because as a council, we only contribute to 2% of the emissions across the entire city. So 98%, we rely on collaboration with our institutions, our communities and our businesses who are based in the city. And not just that, we're a very densely built council. By that I mean there's a lot of buildings. There's a lot of green spaces, there's a lot of buildings. And 86% of our emissions in Westminster come from the built environments. But the other important thing to remember is that when we talk about reducing emissions, it's not just about reducing them for some future date. A lot of the impacts of climate change are already being seen. As Rachel just said, we've just had the hottest year on record. And in fact, if you go back to July of 2022, the hottest temperature ever recorded in this country to that date was recorded in the city of Westminster, when we breached 40 degrees Celsius in St James's Park. A few days later, it was beaten in Heathrow by 0.1 degree, but the point still stands that we are seeing a warming climate, and the impacts mean that we've got extra flooding happening across the city, hundreds of properties in Westminster who've been hit by floods. But also, we have excess deaths and other health impacts that we're already seeing play out in the middle of our city. And another really important point to remember is that a lot of these impacts aren't felt equally. We developed our environmental justice measure at the council, which is our map that underpins a lot of the work we do as a council, and it unsurprisingly shows that the areas with the highest prevalence of flooding, the least tree canopy cover, the worst incidences of air pollution, they coincide with some of our most deprived areas. And so coming back to the comments earlier about the moral imperative to act on this, we have a moral imperative to sort out the climate and ecological emergencies because of how they also support wider social goals. To achieve our net zero 2040 target, Westminster needs to save over 91,000 tonnes of carbon annually. That's the equivalent amount of carbon to driving a car for over 230 million miles. So just to help contextualise, it's a big task that we're undertaking, but despite the scale of the challenge, there's hope. And for me, for the council, that hope really lies in partnership, and we're really proud of the work we've been doing over the last few years to collaborate with those in the city. With our communities, for example, our Climate Champions volunteer programme, which is led by our community partner, the Paddington Development Trust, which has now engaged over 2,500 residents in greener living activity. We convened Westminster's first ever Citizens Climate Assembly, where we brought together residents from all across the city to help contribute to the policies that we're going to implement as a council. And those same residents meet every 6 months now to hold me to account to make sure they're actually acting upon the recommendations that came out of that work. But it's also our businesses and our faith institutions. And so our Sustainable City Charter is our partnership where we ask businesses and organisations in the city to sign up to show their commitment to fighting against the climate emergency. And this is where I normally then go, so please sign up, anyone in the room who isn't, but you might see on the screen that we've got Sustainable City Charter as a logo in the corner here, and that's because I'm really pleased that the London Central Mosque is already a member of our charter and of that community, really showing your leadership in helping to tackle this in Westminster. There's much more that we're doing. I won't go through all of it, but one thing I really want to highlight is our recently launched Cool Neighbourhood strategy. This is the first ever strategy by London Council to look at how we address the short-term and long-term risks of overheating. And one of the key tenets in that has been opening up a network of cool spaces across the city where you can go when it's getting too hot at home or on the streets. And again, I'm really pleased that London Central Mosque is one of those cool spaces. We have the most in any London borough, and it's because of organisations like London Central Mosque being part of this that we're able to say that. Climate action is needed at every level of our community, and we all have a part to play. Action will look different for different stakeholders. It could be that you lead a big organisation and you can get involved with our Sustainable City Charter. You could be one of the ambassadors in the room tonight, getting involved with international talks. Or you could be a local activist, like I used to be, who goes out and does litter picks and speaks to your neighbours about what they can do more. Every little helps. And I certainly don't have all the answers. The council does not have all the answers. And that's why I'm always keen to stress collaboration is at the heart of this. Every day we're learning from our residents, we're learning from our businesses, we're learning from our faith organisations, community groups, about the work they're doing and how we can work together to be more efficient and have a bigger impact on addressing this agenda. And it really energises me, as I said, to come to a room like this tonight and see so many of you giving up your evening to come along and hear about what you can do to get involved. Environmental stewardship isn't just a policy objective. As we heard from Dr. Ahmed, it's also something deeply embedded in faiths all across the country. And therefore there is this moral imperative to act upon this belief that's embedded in what many of us think is important in our planet and in our country. So I just want to end by thanking you all again for inviting me along to speak tonight and for all of you for coming here. And I want to congratulate London Central Mosque on becoming a signatory of our Sustainable City Charter, of getting involved with the schemes that we're doing, but also of your own initiatives, of bringing everyone together, the event that you've organised tonight and everyone that you've managed to get into this room to discuss it. Faith institutions play a really vital role in shaping values, driving local change and engaging our communities on meaningful action. And I really look forward to seeing how we continue to collaborate in the years going forward. I'm afraid I won't be able to stay for the whole evening, but if you want to learn any more about the work the council's doing, there are various council officers who are here tonight. As you just heard from Ayaz, there's a lot of us here. So please do grab one of them in the networking section if you want to speak about how you can get involved in some of the work we're doing. But thank you once again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening.